Hi again, and welcome to the introduction to polymer clay. This is the first video of the booklet for term 1 of the level 1 award in creative craft. So just to explain a couple of things, there's a big difference between what a tool is classed as and what a piece of material is classed as. And the basic difference between that is that materials are something that are going to get used up and you might have to keep replacing, and tools generally are something that you can use over and over again. They might need replacing eventually, but that might be just through wear and tear rather than you've used it up to make the jewellery. So just to recap some of the more popular tools that you will be using for polymer clay, the main one being the sculpting tools. So these will be normally in a set, and they will normally have different shapes and sizes to be enable you to be able to mould and shape your polymer clay. So that's something you're going to tend to use quite a lot when using polymer clay. The other thing that you'll definitely need to use in order to get your polymer clay to become solid and rigid is a baking tray, so that you can bake it in the oven. So as that's something that we'll use again and again, you only need one of them. It's classed as a tool or a piece of equipment rather than a material. Other things you might go on to use are things like cutters to enable you to cut out shapes accurately and quickly, and moulds as well, so that you can get more detailed design again very quickly. So those are some of the tools that you might be using. I'm sure you've seen this in previous videos. A cutter as well. You can get specific polymer clay cutters, but they'll be a lot more expensive than if you try and adapt and use a DIY tool instead. And like I say, materials are the things that are going to run out over time. So the polymer clay will eventually need replacing because you'll use it up. Any other bits and pieces that you might use to make your jewellery, like necklace cord or elastic, they all come under materials as well. So other than polymer clay, there are lots of other things that we can make jewellery from. The ones that we most commonly associate with jewellery are what we call precious metals. So materials such as silver or gold are classed as precious metals, and they are generally quite expensive. They are priced and can vary in prices from day to day, even hour to hour, because they're considered quite a scarce resource. It's something a bit like oil that we don't have a lot of, and it can be quite difficult and expensive to find them. The price of that material is driven upwards, and the more rare, the more scarce a material is, generally speaking, the higher and more expensive it becomes. So silver, working in silver or gold, would be a very expensive way to learn jewellery making, but also it's not as versatile as polymer clay. When we play with polymer, it's very malleable, it's easy to shape with our hands and our fingers and basic tools, whereas a sheet of silver obviously isn't. You need to cut that with a saw. And one of the other benefits of polymer clay, not only is it cheaper and more affordable, is that if you make a mistake, you can literally screw it up and start again and reuse that piece of material easily. Whereas again, if you were using solid materials such as silver, if you made a mistake when you were cutting it, it is possible to reuse that silver, but it means you having to melt it down and hammering it into a silver sheet again, which is a long process and takes a lot of skill. So not only is it more affordable, it's more versatile, and especially for learning jewellery making techniques, it's a great material to play around with and to develop your skills. The other good thing about polymer clay, when you look at your sets, you'll see straight away so many different colours. Okay, now polymer is another name for plastic. Polymer clay is a plastic derivative, and the beauty of plastic is that it comes generally, when we purchase it, already finished. And what I mean by that is it's already had colour added to it, so you don't need to do anything else to make it more colourful and bright. If you were making silver jewellery, for example, and you wanted to add a colour, you might have to add things like gemstones, which again would be a very expensive way of making colourful jewellery. Polymer clay comes self-coloured, and it comes in a huge variety of colours, which means you can be really creative with your designs. So these are all reasons that polymer clay has been chosen for this project. as a beginner's introduction to jewellery making. It's affordable, it's versatile, it's colourful, it's mouldable. It allows you to do lots of different things with the jewellery. It's a way of adding colour to jewellery. It's a way of adding form and shape, because you can build it up and make 3D shapes. You can create items such as beads to decorate jewellery. You can go into a lot more detail and put texture onto jewellery. This is all made using polymer clay and shells, just to put pattern into it, for example. So a great versatile, affordable material to be learning jewellery making in. Other materials that we might use to make jewellery, other than precious metals, like I've named silver and gold, would be reclaimed materials. It's becoming more popular as people are being more concerned with the environment and the impact we're having on the world. So an example of this, for example, a piece of driftwood that has incorporated silver. This would make a nice brooch. It adds lots of texture. It's a nice natural resource, and it didn't cost anything because it was found on the beach. Other ways that we can incorporate other materials into jewellery is using things like fabric. So we can use textiles quite a lot. Here we've used ribbon to braid to make the necklace part of what is predominantly a silver pendant, but actually this in here, this is a natural resource. This is stingray skin that's been dyed blue. So jewellery makers more and more are now incorporating other materials such as leather and plants. Resin is another nice material if you get a chance to do some research on there, because you can set in lots of other items and preserve them within the resin. So jewellery making isn't just linked to precious metals and expensive materials. We can experiment and we can explore new materials, and as a jewellery designer in training, it will be great to see what you can produce and the ideas you can bring into even incorporating it into the polymer clay. So yes, so that's the first introductory video into polymer clay and why we're using it for this project. Like I've just said, you're welcome and you're free to incorporate other materials, and it'll be great to see and to share those ideas on the Facebook group as well. So I look forward to seeing what you make.